got other responsibilities, I don't got time this week. You know, kind of concept, I don't got that time this month. Where, you know, they're not paid, they're volunteer, positions, and if they're gonna do this physical labor, wherever they can fit that in is what we end up with. So we may be stuck in a spot, and they may choose not to. How can you fire somebody?
Not to cut you off,
I understand.
but also, can't the trustees like call a workday? I saw a workday called at one point, we were out of town, we were gone, so we were not able to come, but can't that happen to where younger people can get out there and help?
And I would say
fix our
that as part of the
subdivision?
managerial skills, you know, if you are not physically able to do the work yourself, then ask for able-bodied
And
people to come out and
call
help.
more than one workday a year, call 3 or 4, good
Yeah.
lord, cause
Yeah,
people go
I've
places.
been in those paths.
And he has offered to help for.
I offered and got told that, the weeding up there, Jimmy just did it. I got told I'm not allowed to touch that property that's not owned by us, and I also
The
offered.
one up on the corner.
Yeah, I also
He
offered
offered
to
to
fix
cut the
the
bushes
sign.
away so we can see to get out.
That's,
So,
that
along
They
is,
the
said
road.
I can't touch the sign or I can't touch anything on that property, and if I do, I can be sued by the owner.
The one up when you leave the subdivision?
yeah,
But
that
she
corner
said I
property
can't
where the
touch it.
sign is.
Yeah.
And I offered to cut it.
Was
I
at the
offered
turn.
And he
to-
has a bladed weed eater, he'd load that thing up and go up there and whack
Jimmy
that
just did it.
crap out.
She had told me that 2 weeks ago, I went up there and did all that. More than that, just before vacation. But, and I came, and Randy had pulled out of the subdivision the same time that I was doing it. And he did thank me, he thanked me very much. And, I mentioned to him that we need to do something because we can't get out of the neighborhood safely. And I said, we really should see about sending the owner of this property a bill.
Mhm.
I said, I don't wanna be paid, I don't want, I'm doing this as community service.
Yeah.
But I said, the neighborhood could do that, and that could be put in the general funds and used for whatever we might need. But, and then I ran into, what's her name? Dee, when I was coming back home after that, cause I also picked up trash up there too, a trash can full of trash. And, she was nice to me. She was painting, lines on the road for the water diversion and stuff, okay? So, and she was nice, and, real short conversation, but, I told her kind of the same thing, and she says, something's what Jason just pointed out, is that, she had said, you know, you're not really supposed to touch the property up there and so forth, and, you know, the owner has threatened, you know, legal action as to where he can go ahead and contact me. And I drove off. I mean, it was really no big deal.
Yeah.
But, and she kind of laughed and went on, you know. After we got back from vacation, I did have a thank you letter in my mailbox from Dee, thanking me and my husband for participating and for clearing that out up there. And it was appreciated, and wished us a good summer or something like that. You know, it was a nice letter.
There
She
are
just
some
wanted a
of
paper
those.
trail.
I guess, I'm not sure, but it was nice. I mean, that's what she probably should have done, to be honest, you know.
I
There
don't-
are some of those issues where, it can be better to ask forgiveness than permission, you know, like,
That's the way I was
you
looking
just
at
have to
it.
go and do it.
And that's why I
Not
did
make
it.
a big deal of it, but, yeah,
Thank you
our
for that.
trustees probably should
No
be trying to
problem, no
contact
problem at all.
the owners of that property and say, you need to come and clean up the edges of your property.
Is that property even part of the subdivision, or is
It
that?
is, but
The
it's
other
not
side
buildable.
annexed out.
You know how I cleaned that off when I was, you call the county, and the county brings out that tractor with that, and they just go straight into the trees and go down there like that.
So,
She claimed that she did that. She told me that when I was coming back. She
So
said,
you-
we did that, but they said they'd come and do it whenever the hell they damn well wanted to.
so you're talking about clearing out whenever you go to leave the subdivision to make that left, all those trees right there, not that person's property right here, okay?
Right. Yeah.
Cause I've seen, so you've done it, and I've seen Mr. Martin clearing that out too, because it is dangerous. You have to inch your way out almost to where you're in the street to see if someone's coming. That is very dangerous.
There's a safety issue, there's also a presentation issue. you know, where the entrance of our subdivision looks overgrown and practically abandoned. You have this signpost without a sign, and it's not a welcoming or a very endearing first impression. And especially for homeowners, if we were to, you know, look to sell our property, someone coming to view our property is gonna pull in there and like, this place looks abandoned, you know, at least that's the first impression, is you're first pulling in and you're going down that hill. It's not a very nice impression.
Yeah.
You
Does
shouldn't
that-
get, you shouldn't get in
So-
trouble for it anyways, for clearing it, because technically, from like a building aspect, because it's a main road, it should be 6 to 15 feet easement off the main road
Yeah.
is an easement that you cannot do anything on, that technically the county has, or a subdivision has the right to clear whatever they want right there, because you can't build on it.
Despite what we've been told, I'm not convinced that,
I know that for sure.
we would actually be in as much legal trouble to go and do that clearing and put up a new sign as,
I agree.
as they say.
Yeah, and I don't even think that gentleman that lives right there at the bottom, like, you know, if that's his property, if it would even,
No, that, where they dug all that sewer,
yeah,
years ago, I had to dig through my paperwork, that's owned by Bruce Wolf out in Baldwin. And I called them, they wouldn't return the call. And to see if they had a problem with me, because when I was trustee, I used to cut the head up there.
uh-huh,
And then when the guy came by with the tractor, went, hey, would you cut? Oh, yeah. He just ran it right through there. And I called him for several years, and then all of a sudden, but Bruce Wolf owns that little hole in the ground. So,
As you're going up the
And then
hill on the left.
they're the ones
last
that pay the
chunk,
taxes
yeah.
on that little bitty piece
I-
of property.
I
Oh.
can't imagine that those homeowners are gonna complain about someone coming and trimming their trees.
I agree.
I have one final point, because it is something that everybody's been thinking of for about a year or more since the last meeting. And it's on the topic of trustees. We do currently have someone acting as a trustee who was never legitimately elected to that position. I think we can all be grateful for the work and the time that Mr. Lovelady has put into filling potholes, trimming, painting, whatever he has done for the last year and a half. But we can be grateful for his work and his service while also acknowledging he is not a legitimate trustee. No official election was held, no vote was held a year and a half ago. The problem, just the practical problem, is that no official action was taken by homeowners a year and a half ago to contest Dee's claim that Brandy is a trustee. And so if homeowners want this situation dealt with officially and finally, we would likely need to address it through an official vote or petition from the majority of homeowners, just to sufficiently clear up. It's so well established, it's just the way it is now, because we didn't really address the issue when it was new. So we do acknowledge the problem, but I just wanted to kind of clear up the fact that because it is so long-standing at this point, we would probably need to take more official election or vote action to actually deal with it.
I have a question. What's a qualification to be a trustee? And I don't mean like the good standings and all that, like beyond that.
As far as the
because-
bylaws, I don't think there really is.
Because the last time
There should
that
be a homeowner
we
in
were
good
trying
standing
to,
with you.
they were trying to hold one, Sarah wanted to run for trustee, you know? And Dee's like, your name's not on the title. I said, her name's TOD'd on the title, and I legally couldn't kick her out of, she's my wife, it's common law. Like, if we got divorced tomorrow, she has claim to half of the house, like, it's just as much her house as it is mine. You know what I mean? She's not a renter, you know what I mean? And Dee was like, nope, she can't be a trustee. I'm like, that doesn't, you have somebody that wants to be a trustee and you don't wanna let them? Like, I don't understand. You know what I mean? I don't understand what the logic behind that is, because from everything I read in the bylaws, there's nothing that says she couldn't be. Does that make sense?
As far as the qualifications, that's another one of those things that the bylaws talk about, that it mentions that requirements and qualifications and powers will be explained through these bylaws. That's one of those things that it looks like the intention was that more clarification was supposed to be made, and they didn't really spell out a lot of that. To my memory, the only things that it really specifies that you have to be a trustee is a homeowner. So if we break it down to the legal nitty gritty, it would be whoever's name is on the title.
Correct. So since I'm not on the title, I wouldn't be a legitimate homeowner. It would be, you would have to volunteer if you wanted to be a trustee.
And then,
Volunteering should be work.
There you go.
It doesn't.
Wait, isn't that normally what? Oh, shit.
Yeah, well, it seemed crazy to me, because we just went through this thing. I don't know if you guys even lived in the neighborhood yet when we went through it, with the Cody lady that was at the top of the hill, where, you know, Dee wouldn't let her do anything because she was
I
not,
think-
and
I
then
think she's
her
in-
husband died, and guess what happened?
Yeah.
The house is now in her name. And then she sold it and had no legal obligation to even pay the past dues because there wasn't a lien on the house. So explain to me how that makes sense, to make bad blood with somebody that has full legal claim and right to the house. Like that's kind of what my thing was to it, you know?
the death of a person is a very big legal change of the legal environment.
You're still living.
Well, I know, but even if we got
It
divorced, I
just
could.
completely changes the legal status of the ownership of the property. To an extent, in order to keep things as clear and clean as possible, trustees have to just go by the letter of the law. And it isn't necessarily always convenient or maybe even preferable given the circumstances, but if you start kind of creatively reinterpreting laws, that's where you open the door to a lot of the problems that we are seeing in our subdivision now. So I think, trustees are just obligated to abide by whatever the letter of the law is.
How does that
Excuse me.
address, like they said, he's
It
on the
doesn't
deed,
really.
right?
Yeah.
And you're DOD.
Yeah.
And we don't want you DOD, but we want you here. Is there a law that says, here's the deed and here's blah, blah, and blah, blah, DOD? Can they both, are they not both legally binding to that deed?
I think that would probably be a question that would require
Okay.
a
Well,
lawyer.
better, yeah, okay.
But
But
all
again,
we
that's-
have is
that's what they're
just
pointing
the
out.
wording of our bylaws.
Yeah.
That the bylaws are so gray, they're
Yeah.
not black and white,
Right.
and they need to be.
I don't know.
It just says the owner of the lot, and the best definition that I know of, that is the owner of the lot, is the name
Okay.
or names that are on the title.
Well, that was another dispute that I personally had with Randy, despite the other many disputes that we had publicly, was that when you go on public records, because there is a way to do that, and you see who owns property, just like you can see that my husband is the one that owns our property on paper, his was not legally purchased. It was
I think it was. his
inherited.
mom. Yeah, it was his
So
mom.
his name's not even on his own property that
I
he
don't
lives
think
at.
Randy?
Like, is it-
Randy's.
I don't know if his name's
in
on
a-
it. I think
like
it's,
in a
it's
trust
in a
or
trust
something?
or something, I think.
Perhaps, but then again, like we just discussed, that also could be one of those where like a death or something like that could just legally transfer. But when you look it up, his name's not on the house that he lives in.
Yeah, I think it's in a trust.
So
And
did
this
you
is
say
for- wait a
Randy's
minute.
property isn't in his name?
I
Correct.
think it's in a trust.
When we looked at it on public records,
Did they have Paul Castle on there?
don't remember.
I don't
All I
remember.
remember is his name was
Yeah.
not on it.
Because Paul Castle was Randy's friend that lived there before. Okay, but my question
I'm
was,
sorry, excuse me, what are you saying? You're saying that Randy's name is not,
On the house that
When
he
we
lives
looked it
in.
up, somebody else's name was on it. Cause after the last meeting, now obviously everything could change by now because it's been like a year.
Yeah.
But after the last meeting, we looked up like property records and taxes for Randy's house and like Randy's name wasn't on it. It was like a trust or somebody else's name or
Okay.
maybe his mom's or I don't know, something. But his specific name wasn't on it. It was like the same situation we had when I looked that up on Jefferson County's website, you know what I mean? So,
got it, thank
Definitely
you.
interesting, something to look into.
Yes,
Um,
she's making notes there,
Oh.
so.
yeah.
so I don't know what it is now. I don't know if they changed it or what, but I'm like, I know that we looked it up. Cause we looked up Randy in general
Yeah,
and there's a lot of stuff people don't know about Randy. So, but I don't wanna get into that cause we're not here
Yeah.
to do that, but.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
We could
stuff.
spend an hour on every
Right.
little issue.
Yeah.
So trying to keep it big picture as much as possible.
when you
Chasing
got to
rabbits.
look at the financial report, was Randy's name up there at the top?
I don't recall. I don't recall if it was up there or not.
Oh, you mean the annual one that Dee sends out, or
Well,
the
one
official
at the
bank
bank.
records?
The one at the bank,
Okay.
where each trustee goes up there and has to do the thing and sign in,
Mm.
and the other one take it off. And I'm just wondering, is his name's not on there, is it listed as being a trustee in Hillsborough? So
Well-
maybe he's a fictitious
So
trustee.
part of the problem with the Hillsborough records is, the subdivision isn't actually legally required to submit everything to the county for recording. And so we have gone, or Caleb has gone twice now down to Hillsborough and paid to get copies of all the documents we can get our hands on for the subdivision. And there are massive holes. There are, apart from maybe one document that was submitted to say who the 3 trustees were that were elected, there seem to be no records at all from the history of our subdivision regarding the election of trustees, and who is officially a trustee, who is not a trustee. Those records have just never, if they ever existed, have not been
They
filed.
did
with the county.
exist, but she took them all and put them on.
we gave
Remember the paperwork I told you she said she threw away? Caleb, if you want my notes from years ago, there's a lot of them in there where, liens were put on houses and paperwork of trustees and stuff like that. If you wanna see any of that, you can.
I'll keep it in mind.
Yeah. Record keeping for the last 60 years of the subdivision has been patchy at best. And that is a very practical barrier for us getting a full picture of a lot of these issues. So it's like a puzzle where half the pieces are missing. We're just trying to put as much together as we can.
Which another thing that is to Dee's credit, it looks like when she became a trustee, she did an audit of the documents and submitted and filed a bunch of documents that hadn't made it to the county with the county to kind of get that record more up to date. So there are a number of documents that talk about votes that had happened maybe 7 or more years prior, but they had just never gotten into the county archives.
So it doesn't look like she was making good faith effort to update the records and make sure that everything that should be on record was on record, or at least the big things, the big amendments and votes and things like that. But, you know, still, when you're talking about volunteer positions, and our bylaws just do not give a clear list of requirements for what trustees are supposed to do, it's sort of left up to interpretation. Every few years when you elect a new trustee, it's just whatever happens, and what doesn't happen, and it's very patchy.
So do you think these need to be rewritten and updated?
Rewritten.
Oh, I mean,
Updated.
they badly need to be rewritten and updated. The question is,
I want to say something.
oh, sure.
Yes, when real meetings are called for the subdivision, I have been to many, many of them. They were called and nobody came. I was the only one there, and the secretary, I was the only one there, and I lived down in the subdivision center forever.
Yeah.
And when she has called the regular meetings, nobody showed up. So what you gonna do?
Yep.
Well,
I mean, it's
So-
still,
You know, you've done that.
Yeah.
You come to the meetings and
Yeah, the
nobody
meetings
else.
go there too.
at the same,
If
but,
you want to voice your opinion, the thing to do is to come to the regular meetings and voice your opinion.
we agree.
Don't
Yeah.
We agree.
Yeah, right.
I think since the 22 years that we've been in this subdivision, this is by far the largest amount of people that have ever been.
Yes, because they never,
At one
nobody
meeting.
ever comes.
Yeah.
They come to vote on something,
Yeah.
nobody shows up, you don't get it for them.
Yeah.
I think there's sort of the disappointing reality of how many people you get to turn out to a meeting. And the fact that people are maybe wasting the opportunity to have their voice heard. At the same time, it doesn't change the obligations of the trustees to hold that meeting every year. You know, even if it's the trustees sitting at the table in an empty room, you can't say, well, no one attends, so we're just not ever going to have a meeting again. That's not the solution. And so the big problem is, well, one of the biggest problems facing our subdivision is like what you said, if no one shows up, if no one is bothered to
You
get
can't vote on
involved.
anyone if nobody shows up.
Especially when our bylaws require a 2/3 majority of all homeowners to change anything in the bylaws.
So on that 2/3, can that be a mail-out ballot? It'd be a 2/3?
Possibly could,
It Possibly
Well-
could?
possibly could.
Because like, the guy that owns the one house down there, Mr. Bolte,
Huh?
he lives in Gerald Bolte's house,
Because
Yep.
this is very bylaw.
right 2 doors over from you. You know where, you know. the
Next door to
Bolte's-
Grace,
Yeah.
Bolte's Market,
We've covered.
they used to own that house there,
next door to Grace,
yeah.
Grace Terry.
But Bolte owns it, and it's been empty, and he keeps trying to fix it, and then found out there's a spring in the basement. So the basement stays with both, so nobody wants to buy it.
so, talking about the bylaws and the voting procedures, the bylaws specify that the vote has to be cast with a written ballot. So
Okay.
it seems like the requirement for submitting a vote is it has to be written by hand. So as far as mailing it out, I think that would be okay, provided all the proper notification and everything happens. The big thing that we keep on talking about is that really high threshold to make any changes to the bylaws.
Can we rewrite the bylaws to change that?
If we.
That's
if we
the
get
question here. That's the
two-thirds
$50
of
million
the-
question.
If we can get 2/3
We're
of the
leading up to
homeowners
that.
to agree, yes.
Yeah.
You guys keep saying
Because-
So-
but wouldn't it be 2/3 of the people that show up?
Nope,
Nope.
2/3 of the
Homeowners.
homeowners
57.
of those 57 lots
Owners of
in
lots.
the subdivision.
Because again, a
So-
lot of those guys are landlords and they don't give.
In a
It's
practical application,
I
the
wish you
votes
would.
kind
I know.
of play out as
Good.
We get a little less than half of the people who respond, whatever their votes may be, but a non-response is effectively a no vote for any change.
Exactly.
And that's a big challenge and a big hurdle for us to get past if we want to make any sort of changes to the bylaws. Because we have to get 2/3 of the lot owners to say, yeah, I agree that that change needs to happen, and then actually sign their name.
This is just an idea, but it kind of sounds to me that we're probably gonna need to have more meetings like this, like every 30 days, maybe over a year, to build up a coalition to move forward. Because just the amount of people that's in this room is not enough.
And to
That's the bottom line.
And to
Really is.
piggyback off of his idea,
That's exactly right. So we're talking, we need signs posted, just like you already did, and hold more meetings, and maybe get more attendance, let neighbors talk to other people, and get more meetings and get people, because this isn't enough.
And a lot of our defenses too, we bought our home in 2019. There's never been a meeting until last year, and
Right.
that happened to be on a night when, you know, Ashley had a sporting event, and, okay, well, I can't go, you know?
Yeah.
We've
So-
only been here for 2 years, so,
Yeah, I mean,
that's not.
so
a
it's
lot.
not like we didn't want to come, we just have never really had an opportunity to be
Right.
involved, and when we would try to be involved,
I
we would
got
get,
told no.
we would get
Don't
shot
touch
down,
that.
don't do that,
Or
go back to your house on the
divert
hill.
all your water because you're flooding everyone. I
Oh,
got
wait,
told that.
wait, you can't do that, you gotta tear those walls down because you can't
Yeah,
build
so then
structures
I got
on
in
your
trouble for
property.
building the structures on my property.
What?
Because.
Oh, yeah.
I built
Oh,
a
yeah.
massive French drain. I don't like my walls. I didn't want to build that. That wasn't for fun.
Remember
That
when
was
we
because I got
rained all
told that I had to
that?
divert the water.
All of our gravel,
What if
that
we-
wasn't our gravel.
So, one of our, I wanna make sure that we're not getting off the rabbit trails.
Yeah.
But, to your point, in our final
All
little
those dump trucks that
section,
come down,
it's
putting all the
action
gravel in there.
items,
I got
and
told
one
to
of the
divert water
points.
because I was flooding
Excuse me.
everywhere.
Hang on.
Sorry.
Next one, sorry.
One, it's a very interesting case.
We can have a conversation, I got it all in an email.
I'm sure there are plenty of
have
interesting
a
tales we
paper
can all
trail.
share around. To your point about further meetings, one of the points that I have here for action items is establishing a date for another meeting. And basically just to see, do we all agree that we need another meeting? How soon do we need another meeting? So we will definitely come back to that point before we adjourn today.
with the cards that we dispersed to everyone, what if we made cards for like all the houses in the subdivision, regardless if like there's renters, we just include a portion where like if you are a renter, could we, have you get in touch with like your landlord, have them, get in contact? Just an attempt to try to see if we could get more participation and get their input, because I mean, if they are renting, maybe they would want to care too in the condition of the neighborhood so that they can continue to have renters.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just a thought.
according to our documents, we are supposed to be contacting every homeowner. So we are kind of obligated to reach out even if none of them respond.
Yeah. And then that way we could just put automatically a card on like every door.
The card system is also a little bit of a problem, just because it does require going door to door, putting them on door handles, and we're not trustees.
Oh, that's not a big deal.
It's not that we're not willing to do some of the work and support and help, but, I mean, there's a reason why neither of us put in our application to be trustees, and it's not lack of qualifications or a desire to support and help, it's practical, we just don't have the time. He works full-time, I have been working full-time, I'm about to go down part-time because I'm gonna have a newborn to take care of, and it's just, there are so many of us, I think, that are in a similar position where we might fulfill one or two of the qualifications, but there's that other thing that just prevents, so.
I think if there was a clear-cut picture of what every responsibility is for the individual roles as a trustee, that might help people really think about what it would entail, instead of just looking at it as like, you gotta go out on your hands and knees and paint the road, or you gotta get on your hands and knees and fill potholes, and I know I'm exaggerating that, but you know what I mean, like,
There are,
what it would actually look like to be in those roles.
There are some groups out there, they're state-based, or sometimes they're, you know, in other states, but they are groups or organizations that support and help clarify how homeowners organizations are supposed to work. And there are resources online that give a very helpful description of the responsibilities and authority of trustees in an HOA. So the information is out there. There are very clear descriptions of what trustees are supposed to be doing and what their responsibilities are. The difficulty is just that our bylaws do not specify, and we've been operating in sort of this bubble.
So there could be some clarification on that. Maybe if we found that, we could post it for everyone to see what it would look
And
like.
ideally, if there was a rewriting of the bylaws, there would be greater clarification and description added to the revised version of the bylaws. The difficulty is just we don't have it,
Yeah.
and it's not part of state law either. And so, yeah. Simone?
So if we aren't, so you said that some of the bylaws are like directly conflicting, which is against the state laws. Do we have to have a vote to rewrite those specifically if they're not up to the state standard?
No, actually, the state law does clarify that if someone on the board of directors or the board of trustees, if they recognize that there is an association law that is in violation of state law, they are actually required within 30 days of identifying that conflict to change the bylaws even without a vote.
Has she been made aware that they're?
She doesn't know any of the state laws.
To our knowledge,
To our knowledge.
we haven't broached that subject.
Yeah. And actually, it does say also that if a homeowner becomes aware that there is a conflict and makes the trustees aware of that conflict, that the trustees are obligated to make that change if the conflict is validated, like if there's an actual conflict.
Who validates it? Sorry, I know I'm asking a lot of questions, but it's like all the same line of how to fix it without a meeting.
So as far as kind of
That's
the
good questions.
hierarchy of authority goes, best that we've been able to find is we have the HOA governed by the bylaws. That's the whole governing structure of our community and all that. And you have the trustees that are intended to be the administrative part that handles the money and compliance with restrictions. Then beyond that, it looks like it goes straight to the state attorney's office and the state court system as far as the authority that gets involved with issues with HOAs.
We did actually write an email, very detailed email, to Councilman Haskins, our county councilman, and received no reply. And but the more that we've looked into it, the more we realize the county actually doesn't involve themselves in HOA affairs, and so the lack of reply makes more sense. I wish he'd at least written back and you know, said you need to contact this other person. But we have verified as much as we can that the county government actually has no involvement here. It goes straight to the state.
Talking about the hurdles we have for making changes to our bylaws. We have the high threshold of the 2/3 majority vote. We have homeowner participation, two very big challenges to overcome. Another requirement we have in order to hold a vote, and part of the reason why we didn't try to put any votes on the agenda tonight, is that it looks like we have to know who the eligible voters are according to our bylaws. So we would have to know who's delinquent on their dues before we could hold a vote. And without Dee's cooperation in that, we don't know. So it's 3 fairly big obstacles in our way of being able to hold a vote to make a change and succeeding in a vote to make a change.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the dues issue. I want to keep this fairly brief though, because it kind of overlaps with the bigger financial picture that David's going to get into more. Just very briefly, so we're all kind of on the same page as far as the history of dues. From what I can gather from our documents, in 1962, when our subdivision documents were drafted, the amount of dues per year was $30 per household, or per property. And the next change to dues is recorded in 1984. So between 62 and 84, at least the documents we have access to don't talk about any kind of change in the amount. In 1984, it was voted that dues would be raised to $100 a year. And then in 2003, it was voted to raise dues to $150 a year. And so while we look at the fact that dues haven't changed in 2003, and I mean, that's just absolutely absurd and ridiculous. That's just the pattern. That seems to be the pattern for the subdivision. 20 years go by before we raise dues, and it's not sufficient. It may have been sufficient in 2003. $150 a year is definitely not sufficient in 2026. Unless, of course, and this is where we kind of get into some of Dee's philosophy of being a trustee. You know, if all you're saying your responsibilities is filling potholes,
Painting the road.
paying the electric bill for the street lights, and I'm trying to think, potholes, lights,
Snow plowing.
snow removal. If you have just sort of settled into the mindset that those are your only 3 real obligations, then when she says that we have the money to pay all of our bills, she's not wrong. If that's all you're limiting your financial obligation to, then we have the money to pay those bills. At least for a few more years until snow plowing gets higher and higher and higher, and asphalt gets higher and higher and higher. But for now, yes. The difficulty is that there are actually more things, more financial issues that we have to take into consideration than just those 3. But I'm gonna let David get into that in just a minute. Our bylaws do empower the trustees and their successors with the rights, powers, authorities, and duty to fix, determine, assess, and levy against said lot owners an amount sufficient to maintain roads, roadways, lanes, walks, curbs, private ways, park spaces, storm and sanitary sewers, utilities, improvements, and services located in or provided for by said subdivision. So, the amount, or the wording in there that I think is worth noting is that sufficient to covering all of those obligations. And that's where I think we are running into some difference of philosophy when we talk to Dee, when we get Dee's perspective on the subdivision's financial situation. In her mind, $150 per property is enough. It's sufficient to cover what she wants to cover. But there are, of course, more issues to consider than just those 3 categories. So questions remain about our long-term financial situation. For example, what is the board's plan for covering significant expenses that we know will arise every so many years, like resurfacing the roads? the roads don't last forever. We know that it's a massive and extremely expensive job, and that it will have to be done over and over again. And at this point, there is no plan. Yes.
I got something. So it's on the low end, it's $80,000 per mile to, have it resurfaced all done. And then every 3 years, it's $15,000 to put that top coat on there.
To just reseal it?
Just to maintain it.
Yeah, that annoys me, pea gravel, you have to drive
So,
over.
Oh,
to
man.
maintain would be
But
15,
you
but
need
the
to do that.
initial would be almost 80 grand to
Yeah.
fix the whole roads.
So the question is, what's the plan for massive expenses that we anticipate? But then the follow-up question is, what's the plan for massive expenses that we don't anticipate or can't predict? Like what happens if our rainwater sewage system suddenly fails? The only way to deal with that is going to be through a one-time assessment, and that could be thousands of dollars per property. And at this point, there's no thought to emergencies, foreseen or unforeseen. Did you want to?
No, it's just kind of getting into kind of the stuff that
Yeah.
David
Oh, okay.
is gonna be
Um,
covering.
So these are just the questions. One of my questions is, what's the plan for cleaning up the entrance and replacing the sign? So in terms of dues, it's the trustees' obligation to ensure that we are bringing in enough in dues to not just cover the monthly bills, but to build up reserves that are anticipating emergency situations. It is worth bringing or sharing something with you guys that Dee explicitly stated to us in writing. I have the letter. Last summer after we had, so when we drafted that initial letter that we took door to door to everybody, trying to encourage voting for raising the dues, I actually went and had a meeting with Dee. I sat there for 2 hours. I gave her a copy of that letter before we ever distributed it to you guys. We were interested in being transparent, and we wanted to see if she would work with us. We wanted to see if there was any openness to working with homeowners. And so I left a copy of that letter with her, and we did get a response in letter form in which she said, and I'll quote, "You bringing up resurfacing the roads as something we need to do is not helpful. It can give homeowners the idea that we are planning something that we are definitely not." So, Dee has apparently given up on the idea that the roads will ever be resurfaced. And so that's really the only reason she can claim with any confidence that all of our expenses are covered. So you guys, deserve to know that, at least in her mind, there is no plan to resurface these roads. It's filling potholes forever. That's the plan. There are some other things I could bring up, but there's things we've already talked about, so I'm just gonna go ahead and pass this on to David to continue talking about the financials.
And I think we all recognize that having homes requires maintenance. Roof on your house needs to be replaced every 30 years or so. It's inevitable, it happens. And if you're not planning for those events can be dramatic impact on your finances. It's the same thing for the road. And the road is a significant part of your property value. If you have the same house sitting on a gravel street and one that's set on one that's blacktop and nice, the value is quite a bit different. Sir, you and Gretcher, you had offered that 80,000 estimate on blacktopping a mile worth of the street.
That's on the low end.
That's on the low end.
On the low end, okay. We received notice from Dee that they had a quote to blacktop our Ozark Drive for $200,000 from the beginning all the way through to the end.
That's
Now
on
that-
the high end.
That's on the high end?
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
so that was the basis of a lot of information that I had. That's the only quote that I had, so I ran the math. So Rachel said that in 1984, our dues were $100. Okay, I was off by 3 years. I thought it was 1987. So I'm actually, the numbers I'm gonna give you are a little bit back on this, but I added 3% every year for inflation about what that impact was on us. Now, when the dues were adjusted in 2003 to $150, if we were still on that same maintenance projection of where it should have been, it should have been $160. So we're stepping back and we're degrading as we're moving forward. Also, all those years of accumulation, if we did a 3% increase every year, we get this accumulation effect of those values as we're rolling forward. In 2003, we would have ended up with having a $160 due, but we would have had all of this backlog of accumulating funds that we could have afforded to resurface areas and take care of things. My projections for 2026, if you take that value of $100 per year from 1987 and 3% for inflation every year, we're looking at somewhere around $317 for that, what our dues should be to maintain what they were maintaining in 1987. They had resurfacing events every once in a while, and they took care of the streets better than what we're receiving now. So I know those are scary numbers, but I'll go back on the other side. So say the trustees have a washout of a culvert. Frank, in front of our house, we have a creek that runs through a culvert. If that washes out, it might be $50,000 to have equipment come in and replace that. Or this could happen just about anywhere. And that's not just for the people that live down that end. It's assessed across the total of the subdivision. So that could be several $1,000s. Or if they choose that, okay, well, it's time to re-blacktop Ozark from front to finish, and we use that $200,000 quote they have, that ends up being $3,500 one-time assessment for each house at 57 houses. That's a lot of money to come up with all at once, and we need to bank. My assessment, we need to bank these fees. I don't think they're embezzling. There's methods that we could be using as these funds accumulate, drop them into a CD or a money market fund, let them build interest as maybe we can reduce that dues if we can get those programs going. But just sitting in a bank, it's losing 3% just sitting there. So hopefully they would have enough sense to invest those funds in CDs or money market funds, something very stable. And that's, in a nutshell, that's basically what I have to offer is that math. And what we have in front of us. We're on a downward spiral where we're gonna end up with gravel streets. We don't have any plan to resurface them. They don't have a plan.
I think the only street that does not need to be resurfaced is ours, Crosswinds Point. They all of them do, it's awful.
Are you up on the circle?
Yes.
Because that's concrete.
Yeah.
Which our subdivision used to have a concrete road, and it would have it.
I understand that we cannot afford concrete.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of pass these around here. Just look at this. I'm gonna let this roll through. It's a project I was working on, how to kind of plan these things out of what we can do. So say we broke the subdivision into 5 sections. We can resurface a section every 5 years rather than all of it all in 25 years.
That's an excellent idea.
And kind of reduce the impact of that and just move it on through. So, but they don't have any plan. They're not thinking of this, and it's just, anytime we talk about a project like these things, there's 100 ways to do the same thing. Yes?
So there's been rumors in the past where people have talked about maybe the possibility or what it would look like, if it can even happen, that sometimes there's HOAs just similar to what we have, but they don't take care of the roads. Maybe they just only take care of lighting and things like that, and the responsibility of the road gets handed back to, in our case, would be Jefferson County.
Yeah, you're talking about that, and that is, they have requirements of how wide the roads should be.
It's gotta
So,
be tip-top shape.
yeah, whenever they assume that,
I heard that, but I'd heard something had to be opened up at the end, so it could be like, not a dead end road anymore or something. I don't know if any of this is true, but.
yeah, there's requirements. We kind of looked at that before when I was a trustee, and it wasn't a practical thought. The width of the street had to be wide enough. Some of you here, Sarah, y'all wouldn't have a front yard. You'd have
Oh, right.
streets. You would have street edge almost up to your front door.
It's gotta have, it's gonna
And-
have
and the
a shoulder
expense.
and everything on it
Right.
if it's a main thing.
Right.
that goes down.
Right.
Oh,
So, and if it's that way, just getting the street that way is such an expense that is, we didn't think it was reasonable to head in that direction.
so would that financial responsibility be that of the homeowners and it wouldn't be of the county if the county were to take
To
over?
get the street to where it would be able to be taken over by the county, we would have to invest in that
Initial investment.
initial street. And that's, and you would, the property owners would lose yard.
I know.
This is definitely something that needs to be addressed, though. We have school buses coming down these streets with our kids on.
Sure.
I mean, I know my kids are almost grown, but you're getting ready to start your family. If this is number 1, I'm sorry.
It is.
Congratulations. But you want these buses down there,
Mhm.
because the high school bus did not come down there last year. I fought for that.
Mhm.
I fought them tooth and nail because our kids were being dropped off 20 feet from a bar.
Summer school, they were
Yeah.
trying to drop them off at the barn.
And I threw a fit about that
I
too.
threw a fit about that too, because I wasn't about to have my kids walking in front of that.
Absolutely not. I
No.
watched them in front of that bar having drag races one day at 3:30, and one of the trucks went down into the little hole at the top up there that you eloquently put it. This truck went straight down in there. My kids were dropped off there 5 minutes prior.
Oh my God.
No, absolutely not. But if our road is not, if something is not done, they're not gonna bring those buses down there anymore. It's just not gonna happen.
I understand your concern. It's just we would have to understand the economic impact of what that is. And there's, like I said, it's a lot
I think she's talking about if we're not gonna set it over to the county, then we the homeowner, like the HOA, needs to have a plan for it, not necessarily
Yes.
turning it over to
Right,
the
and,
county.
and I'm not saying I don't understand, because I 100% do. I think most of us here probably said yes to the due increase.
Yes.
We need to do something,
Yep.
there's a real issue here. And it's not, like I said, my point here is, it's not just the fact that the road is tearing up our cars. There is also the issue of school buses come down this road. There is the issue of the safety of the children of the subdivision.
And there are a lot of children in our
There
subdivision.
are. Mine are almost grown. Mine are and starting to.
I have great-grandchildren.
Oh. I have grandchildren, so it's okay.
The part about
But
opening the back street opened up, I don't think that'll happen. They had a sewer back there,
The lagoon.
and you can't build anything on there for 100 years.
Well, residential, I'm sure it would be a problem, but it's putting the street on top of it, they might be able to.
I'm not saying that we even need to do that.
And
I'm just saying we need to. We
Do
definitely.
something.
I
No, I
agree.
understand.
If
We
that
need to
opens
do
up,
something.
then you'll have Marlowe, Carl, coming up through our street.
Heck, yeah, they're gonna be flying.
So that
through
lagoon's not managed?
subdivision,
That
taking a
means you would have
shortcut.
more traffic on our street, where in our street house, Marlowe would come there instead of going.
I 100% don't think that we could ever
Yeah.
turn it over to the county, there's no way, or open it up, that's just not even a possibility.
Yeah.
But it is possible for us to do something about resurfacing a lot of the road.
And that's back, once again, the assessment that I had after looking at this was that we're on a downward spiral that it can't be, we're already 15, 20 years behind on funding. We should already have a bank getting ready to blacktop streets. And that reserve is not there. And it takes 15, 20 years to build that reserve. So we're already, it's gonna be 5 years before, even if we agreed today, it would be 5 years before we would see a blacktop event. And that would be 1/5 of the subdivision. You know, that's just the reality, the economic realities of, and that's under our existing conditions. If we're going to adjust the streets to where they complement buses and turnaround positions and other things for other things, that's more value that is not in that estimate. It's just the basic economics of that math. It's unavoidable. Our property values are tied to this street condition. So the further it spirals down, the lower our property values get. So
You have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, my math is not good. If we doubled it to 300, anybody can correct me, it's like $25 a month. Is that correct? Or am I all screwed up here?
Yeah.
Is that right, somebody?
Yeah.
So $25 a month, Frank and I don't make that much. I mean, we're on Social Security, blah, blah, blah. You hear that from everybody. But we go out to eat 2 or 3 times a week. So $25 a month would be okay with me. But if you want $300, you're gonna hurt me, or I'm gonna hurt you.
So when it
But
was shared on-
25 at a time, I can comprehend that and
When
do
it was
that.
shared on Facebook, so like, there was, I think, somebody shared it on Facebook after the last meeting with the numbers, and it seemed overwhelmingly positive that those that are on Facebook,
Mhm.
in the unofficial Facebook HOA group, was that people wanted dues increased. So some were saying maybe not so much 300 or right away 300, but
Mhm.
the 150 to 200 people seemed okay with, and then having, some were saying that we don't necessarily need the, like, the yearly
3%
increase.
increase.
However, that's here nor there, even with a 200, that starts putting more money into the account
Mhm.
to then potentially invest, because if I remember correctly, and I don't have the letter, we're not sitting at a zero balance, like, or a
yeah,
zero
it's
budget.
like $5,000.
Yeah, like there's money in there. Yeah, I mean, it's not enough, but there is money in there left over from that 150, pending that we don't have anything major.
Yes.
So we've just gotta figure out
Yes.
how do we get enough people to vote for, yes, an increase,
Well,
and then
well-
have confidence in the information that is then relayed back to us.
The responding votes were strong.
Right.
For what we were after, but
But-
when we talk about getting 2/3 of the subdivision.
But that's where the conversation that I've had is the information, so yes, it may be overwhelming, but did we get, are all the people that voted, did they truly get counted? Or did we just say, yeah, it's overwhelming, but not enough people did, you know what I mean, like, that missing stuff where some people's getting mail and some people aren't. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I think the problem with that vote last year, I have no evidence that suggests that Dee was miscounting or holding back votes or anything like that. The biggest issue or the 2 big issues. She was saying we needed 2/3 majority to vote yes in order to raise the dues, when we only needed a simple majority. We only needed 51% of homeowners to vote yes. And we were only like 6 votes away from that. But then the follow-up problem is that even So she doesn't have the right information, and she's not communicating the right information about what that vote required. The other issue is that even if she was operating on the correct information on how many votes were required to raise the dues, I don't know that she or any of the other trustees would have been willing to go door to door to try to collect the remaining 6 votes. And so there were two issues going on there. I think if we'd been a little bit more on the ball last year and had understood some of those details a little more clearly at the time, maybe we could have jumped on it and like tried to secure the additional votes. But when everything is so closed, she doesn't share information. It's hard. It's like those of you who have volunteered to help with subdivision things and have been shut down, if we were to try to get involved, especially, she was very, very unhappy with us last summer after we circulated that letter. I just don't know, there was nothing indicating we could get her to work with us.
Yeah, I'm gonna offer something. I've kept this private for a while, but Frank had a conversation with Dee as I was walking up the street trying to cultivate this vote. And do you mind offering what she had said to you?
Boom, or shoot him in the back.
Yeah, she was telling Frank she'd like to shoot me in the back for that. And I thought, well, making that threat was illegal. And I thought, well, I don't think that she would, but making that threat was a legal threat.
Absolutely.
So I thought about calling the police
This is
for
America.
that.
Words
But-
hold consequences.
and I saw it as support for the subdivision. I was trying to maintain, we were trying to maintain the subdivision and keep it going. But she's dead set against raising the dues. And like she said, she has no plans for resurfacing. So we're taking this ride with our investments, what she's rolling out. And it's a dictatorship, basically, is what we're sitting at. It's not that the trustees serve at our pleasure, the homeowners. We are confined into this, and our votes don't really matter.
I think in the back, have your hand up.
So, the voting process, people who don't pay, votes don't count against us. So if there is 12 homes that are not paying their dues,
The bylaws aren't clear on it.
so would that mean our threshold is even less?
That's a good question. I
Yeah.
hadn't thought about
I
that.
think when you're paying dues was on.
'Cause-
Trustee, had to be up.
That's
Right,
not, but
but
that's
you don't
not
get
what
the-
D says.
The
Dee
bylaws.
says you can't even come to the
Yeah.
meetings if you
Yeah,
don't
you
pay.
can't
your
vote.
dues.
She can't do that. Well, she can, she
Well,
did.
well,
She says a lot of
for
things.
that, the bylaws say that if you're behind on dues, you are allowed to attend the meetings, but you're not allowed to participate in votes. With
That
kind
that
of,
seems to be
You have a
like
less of a
HOA
threshold
standard.
because if they don't have the.
with,
Being able to attend but not vote seems to be like a general HOA standard, kind of like across HOAs in general. Of being able to attend but not vote if you're not up to date in dues or fines or liens or whichever.
sorry,
No, you're
did
fine.
I cut you off?
No, you're good.
Okay. The amendment that says that if you're delinquent, you're not allowed to participate in the vote, doesn't say anything that it kind of lowers the threshold. I don't think it's quite
I'm
that
not saying it's
specific. That
really
might
over
be,
threshold, but the
Yeah,
amount of votes to get to that
Yeah.
2/3 is 12 less.
so,
because they're
so
not
like we
taking
have
out votes.
57 properties, let's say only one is not eligible to participate in the vote, so you have 56, so now half of that will only be, what, 28, and.
So you're suggesting
so
that
you'd
works
be
in our favor?
29 instead of the.
If people
so-
were to vote?
And then my other question would be.
Possibility
the
that our bylaws
investment
don't say
Yeah,
anything
I
about
think
it.
that is
That's-
a bit of a gray area.
that opens interpretation
That
that it
is
could.
an unintended, gap in that amendment that got done. That would probably require more knowledgeable legal minds than what we are to be able to answer that
It
question.
seems like a lot of these issues are funneling down to legal advice.
Yeah.
I interrupted you, so what were you gonna say?
Well, I mean, I know we've been talking about the roads and that, but I didn't know if we've had thought about, or if this even is a concern, really, you know, like we have a water drainage, you know, problem.
Yes, I
And, I mean, I realize, you know, we live in the hills, this is what happens, I get that, right? But what I'm also, you know, kind of curious about is like my husband and I, we have a property in Lake of the Ozarks. And, you know, a lot of that's rural area, and over several years, for the past 20 years, like the DNR has came into there on some of these lake roads and said, hey, you gotta put a sewer system in here. And you're seeing these sewer systems down these lake roads, you know, in Camden County, Missouri, that you would have never seen. And it's because the DNR has came in there and said, hey, you guys gotta clean up your act. You know, this water is not being dispersed the way it should be.
Yeah.
So my question to us as homeowners all in this neighborhood is what are we gonna do if something like this happens in Whispering Winds, and they say, hey, you guys got one sewer, and you got a creek all back behind Ozark here, and you're running all this water in this creek, and we don't want it done anymore.
Yes.
I don't know if this is a possibility, but I know it's happening down in Camden County.
That's
Yeah, and
definitely
it's,
kind of
that's a
one of those.
responsibility that nobody seems to be talking about.
Yeah.
Because of it back in 2020.
Most of the houses on that side have two sump pumps.
You should hear some of the things she said to us when we bought these homes on Crossman's
Okay.
Point, how much it was our fault. That they bulldozed a dry creek and
Yeah.
didn't put drainage under the street, and this is our water problem, and we need to do something, cause we're flooding you guys
So
down
in
on
the original
Ozark.
plans,
I promise
the
you
Frank
it's not
had
you guys.
sewer, but he said he wasn't allowed to connect to
We were
the
like,
sewer below.
what do you want us to do?
Right.
I could kayak from the top of the road all the way down to the sewer
I
plant.
totally understand.
Like,
Drainage is
when
a
it's
massive
raining
problem
really
throughout
hard,
the
like
entire
literally like a
state.
kayak, like
100%.
it's this deep,
Sounds
you
like
And
know?
more for everyone else than us, I mean, cause we're at the top of the hill, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
And,
I agree.
and you're at the bottom,
Okay.
I'm not saying
Our
we
house
need
is up on
anything,
the
you
hill,
guys
so-
need
The water,
something.
the water over the road back there, the deepest it's been was up to 90.
I believe
I
it.
believe it.
Yeah,
remember that?
it's, I think we have something like 93 acres of watershed all pouring into our little valley. And from the little online calculators I could find, that comes out to about 3.3 million gallons of water per inch of rainfall that
Wow.
flows past your house.
Yeah.
Some of it's not.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yes,
Some of it
does.
we can get away with us not paying for and potentially make somebody else pay for it. So we have the unique ability right now that your guy, in front of your guys' house, all that brown water's coming in right now. So it shows you exactly where the water's coming down at and where more water's coming down at, because all that brown water is coming from all that fill that they're putting behind that concrete company or whatever that is
Oh, up
over
on-
by those apartments. So if all of his water is now coming into our neighborhood because of what he's doing, he's responsible to fix it if we call the county. Because it's not any different than if I build a house behind a neighborhood and the diversion of water coming off the house, that's why you have to get a civil engineer. Because the diversion of water coming off the house, if it impedes on the drainage system and overloads it for the neighborhood that I built behind, I am now responsible for lawsuits from that whole neighborhood based off of the water that's messing their neighborhood up from my
And that's a
building.
great point and a great idea.
So-
And like, if we had trustees who were willing and able to do that footwork and represent the subdivision in that way, then it's something that we could pursue. I just don't know what it looks like to pursue that as homeowners that are not trustees.
So I guess the real question is, since we're pretty much out of time.
Yeah, we do need to wrap up, I'm sorry.
What steps do we need to take to
From here.
accomplish what needs to be done?
Sounds like it has to be legal.
My
Encourage your
thought
neighbors
is,
to vote.
yeah,
That sounds
yeah,
like we
my
should
thought
necessarily
is that
should
we
remember-
change
or
the
trustee
voting
members.
bylaws to represent the majority of responding votes. And we all agree, if somebody doesn't care enough to vote, apparently it doesn't make that big a difference to them. If we're active in the subdivision and we're voting, I would assume that we're voting in the best interest of the subdivision in our properties, which translates larger. So I think we can get the homeowners, but we need that one key of that 2/3 vote to pass that bylaw. And once we get that, then we can adjust the rest,
Can you
just
go
by attending.
door to door to get those
We,
votes?
yes.
In fact, we have,
There's precedent for it.
yeah, I think we have documents for 3 different votes that had changes to the bylaws, where they held a meeting, they held a vote. They had everybody who was present at the meeting sign their name for what they voted, and then the trustees followed up and went door to door to get everybody else's vote on
guess
the
my
issue.
follow-up
It's
question
not a
is-
requirement per our bylaws, but in my
Trust-
opinion, that's like good due diligence.
But a trustee would be the one that would have to do that though, and Dee made it clear on that last meeting, when Charles was still there, that she won't do that.
No,
Or
but,
does it
no,
have
I
to
mean,
be
we
trustee?
can, as homeowners, we can contact our neighbors and,
Right.
and send out, a signing vote saying, hey, will you vote for this with me?
Like a template
My
that they could
follow-up
fill out
question
themselves.
Is pertaining kind of to the little nasty postcard that we all got. Without the trustees' support in a vote like this, will it matter?
If we have 2/3 of the vote, the trustees, they have no power, the homeowners have the power.
Yes.
Well, that's
You
how
know,
I
you know what
feel
I'm
it
saying?
should
So
be.
if we
They're
get
our
2/3 of the
representatives.
vote,
I
we
think
can
what
pass
she's,
this.
I think what she's getting at, and correct me if I'm wrong, is how do we know that Dee will actually follow through if we have all this documentation
Yeah,
that these votes have been
There's,
cast?
well, there's
That's
the
when you get the
risk
law.
that they'll quit if they can't control the strings.
Yeah.
If they can't control everything, they may quit.
Also, I don't think any of us are comfortable with her rewriting the bylaws.
They've already done that,
Yeah.
yes.
Without-
Without our votes.
Yeah.
Right, but that's my point. I mean,
Yeah.
I would think we would all need to get together like we are now and discuss what the bylaws should be.
Apparently, so she wrote, and again, we have this in writing, she approached a lawyer, or consulted with a lawyer about getting the bylaws rewritten, and she was quoted $6,000 for that process, and her follow-up remark is basically, well, so that's not going to happen. So she has looked into having our documents completely rewritten to update them, but the cost of it is enough of a problem that she isn't going to pursue that. I'm convinced there might be some alternative ways to go about that. I don't know that we necessarily have to pay a lawyer to do that whole process from beginning to end. But if we were to make any changes whatsoever to the bylaws, even if it was just updating language and readability and formatting, we would still, as homeowners, have to get together and vote to approve whatever that version is.
Okay.
So she couldn't change anything anyway without a vote.
She, well.
She has.
She has.
She has.
That's
Yeah,
part of
she
the
has.
problem.
And I'll give you the very specific, and please, if you don't mind shutting off the recording.
Cut this off.